This is a special edition of Late Night Health. I'm Mark Allen. We're going to continue our conversation with Sandy Robertson. Sandy's a registered nurse. She has a master's degree in nursing. She's done all kinds of things, wellness programs for major corporations, and she has a book out. We've been talking about it. Why am I eating this? I always say that about broccoli, but we'll find out. Maybe I should be eating more. In this segment, I thought we'd talk about the secondary title of the book. Is this the nourishment I need? Sandy, welcome back to Late Night Health. And I'm curious, I'm not a big broccoli guy. I've found ways that I can eat it. I'll broil it and I'll drench it in like balsamic vinegar. So I don't add a lot of calories to it. Maybe a little bit of olive oil and some garlic, anything to hide that flavor. Should we be looking at foods that provide nourishment, and do most people do?
Thank you, Mark, for having me. I believe the answer to most people's nutrition and or dietary challenges are looking at food as nourishment and the best nourishment for them, which includes how much food. And also to think of the nourishment we need, all of us need, in terms of self-care, whether it's sleep, water, exercise, family, friends, social support, spirituality. That's all nourishment too. So many times we think we're hungry, we need to eat something, when really we may need to go outside and look up at the sky, or perhaps more sleep, or to call a friend. So I really am excited about sharing this theme of nourishment to help people change their relationship with food and eating for good.
Do you think most people have a bad relationship with food and they need a divorce?
I don't like to label things good or bad, Mark. I think that in this country, especially with the excellent marketing companies, um, magazines, the media, social media, we're led to believe we all need supersized portions all the time, or even restaurant meals are bountiful and plentiful. But for the average person, male or female, unless they're running, training for marathons every day, they're putting too much fuel into their bodies. So I don't think people really think about that. They could think, well, I'm eating healthy food. But if you eat way too much of it, you'll gain weight if you don't have the energy out. There's to be the energy in, energy out balance.
A couple of weeks ago, I was in a restaurant and we had a tasting meal. And it was just that. You get a little dollop of something, right? One shrimp, that kind of thing. Very tasty and leaving you wanting more. Period. End of story. Is that a better way of eating? Just a little bit of this and a little bit of that?
I think it's very personal, Mark, because for everyone it has to do with our upbringings and childhood and memories and feeling we have enough, plentiful and bountiful. And a lot of people just psychologically, if they went to that tasting menu, they might hate it because psychologically it wasn't enough food. So I think striving for balance for all of us, what's the right amount of food that satisfies our nutrition and fuel needs, but satisfies us psychologically too. And I think I mentioned at a different time, the book, The Hungry Soul. And so but when we're eating, we're feeding our soul, we're feeding our emotions, but it's really all about balance and finding that right balance for us.
And we're going to talk about something that you mentioned during our time before we started recording, and that is in the book, Why Am I Eating This? And I'm questioning the broccoli again. Is this the nourishment I need? Not only is it a way of developing a good relationship with food, but it's also touches on spirituality, doesn't it?
Absolutely, Mark. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. When we think of ourselves as a mind, body, spirit, energy system, a unique energy system that's striving for balance, thinking about the food as fuel that we're putting in our bodies and what's the best fuel for me. And without judgment, it's fine to eat desserts and fun food, when we want to, but just being able to label it that way. This is fun, this is entertainment, this is dessert. Yes, I want it. But on average, are we caring enough about ourselves and the state of our body, mind, spirit, energy system to give us just the right amount of fuel and not too much? Otherwise, put it in a to-go container and, have it the next day.
And I mean, this is all about self love. We talked in our previous segment about hugs. You don't get hugs, so you eat a little bit more food. Then you eat a little bit more than a little bit more food, and so on and so forth, and end up, you know, gaining weight. If you love yourself, do you think you eat properly, or you can learn to love yourself so that you have a better relationship with food?
Yes, I feel if we love ourselves, we will take good care of ourselves. That means exercising enough, getting enough sleep, and yes, eating not just the right kinds of food and healthy food, but the right amounts. And we all have experiences of times in our lives, maybe profound stressful times when we just didn't care and ate whatever or overate, and we were aware of it because of this stressful time. That can happen for all of us, but it's the then after that ends going back to, okay, I love myself, I care for myself, I want my body to be healthy for a long time and to have energy. So how can I care for it lovingly?
And eating that broccoli.
Eating the broccoli, yes, in whatever form you can get it in to you.
And it's funny. I don't know if you can relate to this. My mother was an okay cook. She was not overly experimental. Uh, she would make Brussels sprouts, and they would be gray. They'd go in green and come out gray, and they tasted awful. I'm sorry. Brussels sprouts today are probably one of my favorite vegetables because of the way they're cooked, the way they're prepared. So is that, taste to me is everything. I mean, I know we want to get the nourishment, the nutrients, but if it doesn't taste, how are you going to eat it?
You're exactly right. And I'm glad you brought that up because some people think of dieting, they're on a diet and it's boring, bland food. I prefer to think of it as just how are we eating the way we're eating on a day to day basis. Like you said, making all food, even vegetables, interesting and fun, like roasting vegetables, adding some olive oil, adding some balsamic vinegar, herbs and seasonings. It's possible to do that with all the great cooking techniques and different technology now. And olive oil, of course, makes everything taste good.
The other,
All vegetables.
oh, you're right. And I've been using um, avocado oil, which
Yes.
is has a mild flavor, and to me, it's better than canola oil. Any thoughts on those?
I have read that avocado oil is very good for you and good in many different kinds of cooking. So I'm not an expert in it, but I have read a lot of positive articles about avocado oil.
I should have asked this before, but is why am I eating this a diet book? So,
No, it's not a diet book. It's a book about retraining your mind about food and shifting that relationship we have with food and ourselves, and thinking about how, just as we've been discussing, how we are nourishing ourselves every day. and loving ourselves. And to me, that takes the judgment out of it. So I don't like the term diet, and people are thinking this culture obsessed with dieting or talking about it. But if we look at it as nourishment and make it fun, and I purposely made the book short and sweet and fun and kind of whimsical with some humor because I don't want it to be so serious anymore. I want it just people to have curiosity and to be more like, oh, light bulb moment. I'm eating too much. Great. I can eat the same amount of foods, just less. So think of it in really simple terms.
We talked again about during our uh, pre-recording time about organic versus non-organic. What is your take on organic, preservatives, and food dyes?
I think if at all possible, if people can eat organic fruits and vegetables, especially, that is better for us because it doesn't have the chemicals, preservatives, and other things. Not everyone can afford that, and I understand it, although there are many places now that you can get food that's not as expensive. But there's been so much research and great articles about the impact over time of eating food with pesticides, chemicals, additives, and what happens to our bodies. So that's why I think, if possible, for most of us, we're not going to be able to all the time, and not all restaurant food is organic, but more than not, I think it's advantageous for people's health and long-term health and well-being.
Uh, Occasionally, can you veer off that organic path and eat something like a hot dog?
I say yes, absolutely. Enjoy. Food is meant to be enjoyed. And as I said, I talk about labeling food and just calling it fun, entertainment. Yes, sometimes I want to have a bowl of popcorn for dinner. That's fun. It's okay. Enjoy food. It's meant to be enjoyed.
But that bag of popcorn, long as it doesn't have, isn't made with cottonseed oil, um, maybe it's air popped. Is that enough nutrients? Or is it just, I mean, there's a lot of fiber in there for sure.
Well, Mark, I look at it in terms of how often are you doing it? So at times in my life when I lived alone, I might have had popcorn for dinner a few nights a week. But was that really good for me? No. So it's how often someone is doing that. And, how often are they eating blueberry pie or some cookies? Now and then, these things are okay. We're all human beings, we have emotional ups and downs. And I look at it as, what are the trends over time for the quality of nourishment we're putting into our bodies?
So as we get older, our metabolism slows down. And it seems that it's harder and more difficult to drop those unhealthy pounds. We know for a fact, and again, I'm not a doctor, I have no medical training, I just talk to experts like you, that, even 15 pounds of tummy fat can be detrimental to your health. How do you drop those last 15 pounds? And I know the E word, exercise, is going to come in here. I just know.
Exercise, absolutely. You're right, Mark. That helps people lose weight. And cutting back on portions and amounts. I think most people don't realize how much they're eating. And they also don't realize what the right amount of food is for them at this time in their lives. Like you said, metabolism slows down. So for most of us, as we get older, we need to downsize our portions. It means we can still enjoy food, but just eat less of it. So the combination of eating less food and more exercise, that can help us lose those excess pounds.
I mean, it's easy. Less in, the less you weigh. I mean, for the most part.
The energy in, energy out balance. A lot of people forget that food is fuel, is energy in. When we're taking too much energy in and not enough energy out in exercise, that's when the pounds can creep on.
How do we know that we're getting the nourishment we need? Now, that's part of what your book is all about. And I think that's important because if you're eating hot dogs all the time and avoiding broccoli and Brussels sprouts, and even having big salads, dressing it with huge amounts of dressing is not necessarily getting those nutrients you need. So, how do you know what your body needs you to do?
I think a first test or assessment mark is, how do you feel? So, how do we feel on a daily basis? Do we have the energy that we need to be out in the world, either doing jobs or passions or hobbies, enjoying ourselves? Are we sleeping well? So that's a first, macro question. How do we feel on a day-to-day basis? If once in a while we're off and we could attribute it perhaps to something, we ate too much sugar, alcohol, whatever, that's fine. The next step is going to a doctor. Doctors draw labs, doctors take blood pressure. Doctors can ask you what you're eating, and a lot of them actually are taking nutrition courses now. I do want to say, Mark, that everyone is different and everyone's energy system and metabolism is different. So I see so much in social media articles about eat this, not that. And everyone's talking about whether it's gluten or dairy, but everyone's physiology is different. So it comes back to individualized, personalized nutrition based on your body chemistry, and it's an individual situation for everyone.
But isn't there some kind of generic rule to follow? I mean, that eat a eat a steak or eat sort of broth. I mean, which is generally speaking, I guess you need some of each. One of the B vitamins comes from meat. I think it's one of the only ways of getting that vitamin.
I I hesitate to make proclamations because people are so well, the word defensive comes to mind, but also feel strongly about it one way or the other. I would say we all need protein, we all need fruits and vegetables, and some grains, the B vitamins. Most people, I notice, don't eat enough fruits and vegetables generally unless they're very intentional about it, having big salads with a lot of greens. So, back to everyone needs to talk to their healthcare provider or nutritionist about the best kinds of protein for them. And as I said, the recommendation is more fruits and vegetables. I think it's 3 to 4 servings a day. And most people don't get that.
And what about the amount of protein? I've been told that most Americans overeat protein.
You're right. The recommendation, unless someone has a medical condition and has been told, less or more, around 4 ounces per serving. And restaurant servings, it seems, are more up towards 12 ounces, 8 to 12 ounces, whether it's fish or meat or chicken. So I think for everyone, understanding what does a portion size look like, when I worked with nutritionists, they would say the palm of your hand, of a woman's hand for protein size, or a deck of cards. I think that's a great analogy. The amount of protein, think of a deck of cards. So whether it's chicken or meat or fish. And there are ways to cut it up and mix it with vegetables so that the amount on your plate appears large and bountiful and you don't feel deprived. That's an important factor of downsizing food portions. If it's just a lonely piece of something on a plate, people can feel deprived. Add lots of vegetables and salad to it.
And I love salad. I try to eat salad almost every day.
Yeah.
But I also put dressing. Most of my dressings are homemade. olive oil, mustard, there's some kind of vinegar, and then seasoning. The bottle dressing that a lot of people um, tend to put on their salads are have preservatives. We've talked about that, and other things that you can't pronounce. You have to go to chemical engineering school to pronounce that.
Yes, the simpler the better. The fewer the ingredients, the better.
Do you make your own dressings, or do you? Well,
We use oil and balsamic vinegar. Very simple.
that's my wife does that.
Yeah.
Mix it up a little bit. Um, as we wrap up, um, I wanted to just talk about cravings and the self love again, because one of the biggest cravings is sugar. And I also believe that a day without chocolate is a day that maybe, maybe wasn't worth living. I don't know. Is chocolate that good for you, bad for you?
There's research that dark chocolate is good for you. It has a chemical that's advantageous, but it, as we've been discussing, Mark, comes back to the amount, a square or two versus a bar. So dark chocolate is good for you, unless you've been told, by a doctor for a medical condition to avoid sugar.
Right, and also to limit that sugar intake.
Yes.
As we wrap up, what would you like people to know about why am I eating this? Is this the nourishment I need?
Mark, I'd like people to know that this book can change their lives by helping them change their relationship with food and eating and themselves as they think about what kind of self care and self love and, yes, nourishment is best for them. And that nourishment comes in many different flavors, and that can really help them towards their optimal health and well being.
And it also helps, I would think, if you get a good relationship with food and yourself, your own personal relationships will also improve.
Yes.
That was a short answer.
How we feel about ourselves in any given moment, we can then reflect that out to the world.
Uh, Sandy, thank you very much. Will you come back and talk to me again?
I would love to. Thank you, Mark. This has been really fun and so interesting. And thank you for all your great questions.
Thank you. Uh, we're going to have the next couple of weeks. Sandy's going to join us on our sister show, Mark Allen Cooks You Dinner. And we'll do something that will be tasty, fun, easy, and maybe help you change your relationship with food. Sandy, again, thank you very much for joining us. Name of the book, Why Am I Eating This? Is this the nourishment I need? And you've got all the information on how to get the book and learn more about Sandy here on our screen. I'm Mark Allen. This is Late Night Health.